All right, we are live in beautiful, sunny Florida, and today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down UFC 257, Poirier versus McGregor 2. And my oh my, is it always a special occasion when Conor McGregor steps foot in the octagon. Had to bring on a special guest. I got my boy Will Martin. Will, how you doing, man? And how hyped are you for this Conor McGregor fight week?
I'm doing very well. I really do appreciate you asking me to come on. I was always going to make time for you as soon as you asked me. Really happy for this fight card. I was going to say you're in beautiful sunny Florida. I'm actually in snowy Scotland. Where I stay, I live really close to the water. Woke up this morning, we actually had some snow. So my daughter, for the first time, actually had snow. And I had to go to work and I missed it all, of course. But yeah, great fight card. When you've got the main man of the whole entire UFC, the biggest name in the sport coming back, it's always a big thing. And when you've got him against a guy like Dustin Poirier, I mean, it just takes it up to the next level. So I couldn't be happier that Conor's back. I couldn't be happier with the main event that they put together. And I couldn't be happier with all the things that they're doing for charity, all the good things that's kind of coming from this. And it's a pretty big difference from like 5 years ago when like two young bucks coming up and one had to keep going on. And so it's a total different time, and I really enjoy what I'm seeing right now, and hopefully the fight kind of lives up to big expectations that we've all got.
Yeah, man, everything has really come full circle. You mentioned that fight that I believe 2014, UFC 178. Both guys were really shooting up to try to get to that 145-pound title. There was a lot of animosity, brutal finish. I mean, just amazing build up, fight itself, aftermath. Obviously, we know what went on with both guys afterwards. I mean, legendary careers, and now here they are, pretty much both cemented as Hall of Famers at this point, I would say. And you watch the press conference, and there's a lot more respect being thrown around this time. You mentioned the charity work, and I like that, man. I don't need a bad blood story here. We got that 7 years ago. I mean, even going back a year ago to the McGregor versus Cerrone fight, I loved the respect being shown between those two, and it has nothing to do with the fight. We're gonna get the fight anyway. You're gonna get violence in the fight. You don't need the shit talking. Leave that to the younger guys. Leave that to the Colby Covingtons of the world. I'm down for this, man. And not only that, with this fight on this card, I love pay-per-views with a true co-main event with big implications. And Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler is that fight. I mean, Michael Chandler was a long-time champ in Bellator. I want to say he was even a 2 or 3-time champion in Bellator. Been around forever. I mean, we're talking about fight of the years with Eddie Alvarez almost a decade ago. And now here he is. He is finally here, and he's taken on, in my opinion, a top 5 guy, one of the best strikers in the UFC period. Can't wait for this fight. I mean, not only because we got, in my opinion, I mean, Michael Chandler is probably going to end up in the rankings, like win or lose with an impressive showing here. So we got an amazing fight between two top ranked guys here. And the stylistic matchup is what makes it even more interesting with the striking of Hooker versus the wrestling of Chandler. I can't wait for it. The rest of this card is banging. Let's just get right into it, man. First fight of the night, we got Amir Albazi. He's taking on Zhalgas Zhumagulov. This fight's sitting at a pick'em right now. I believe slightly into Zhumagulov. Will, who do you got?
Close fight. I have this being really, really close. I know a few people that have rolled with Amir and worked out with him down in London Shoot Fighters and spoke to him, says he's really, really talented when he hits the mat. But it's just a case of kind of getting it there. And I think that Zhalgas will give him opportunities. I think he's a little bit reckless at times. He can wade into shots a little bit too much, and there's the opportunity to kind of take him down. But to me, I don't think I've got a great read in this fight. I want to see a little bit more of Albazi, because when I watched him in Brave against Shorty Torres, he got pushed back a lot against the cage, and I didn't really like that too much. And Zhalgas will kind of come forward. He'll look to try maybe get some takedowns, but he will look to pressure for the most point. But like I say, you can't really take anything away from the Albazi fight against Malcolm Gordon, because we've come to see that Malcolm Gordon is just maybe not UFC caliber. I shouldn't really be saying that, considering I'm the one that's sitting there and watching this guy kind of fight. But when you see enough fights like I have, and enough people that's come through the organization, and you see what's happened in these two fights, you're like, maybe this guy's a little bit expendable. We might not see him in the UFC again. But I want to see a little bit more from both guys. I lean on the Zhalgas side. when you watch the fights he had before his UFC tenure, you had Tajia Ulanbekov, you had Ali Bogatinov, like Tyson Nam, and like I don't fully agree that he won some of those fights, but he makes them razor close in the rounds. And I know they were fighting in his home country and so on for I think maybe one of those fights. I'm just kind of leaning on the Zalgas side, but I think it's going to be like one of these split decision fights, 29-28. But I'm looking forward to seeing Albazi, and hopefully he can get it to the ground and we can see a little bit more from him on the feet. But I'm going to lean on the Zalgas side.
Fair enough. So, I mean, yeah, I tend to agree that this fight is lined insanely close. I have a hard time, being confident in Zalgas. Firstly, just because you go and look at most of this guy's wins, they're all razor close. I mean, he's not dominating really any of these fights. He'd have to go way far back in his career before he took a step up in competition. So, even when he's winning, it's still pretty sweaty. And then on the Albazi side, I mean, I could take something positive from that Malcolm Gordon fight. I know Malcolm Gordon, I don't know if he's getting cut or will next fight, but Will's right. He probably shouldn't be in the UFC. But one thing I will say, Malcolm Gordon is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He is a decent grappler. It's mostly just his chin. That's the main problem with Malcolm Gordon. So to see Albazi sub a guy like Malcolm Gordon, I was pretty impressed with that. The dude does have some pretty good grappling skills. I just think Zalgas has been in there with much better competition. He does have more fights. I think this is going to be a learning experience for Albazi. The problem with Albazi, sometimes he can get backed up in these fights. Sometimes I don't want to say he falls asleep in there, but there could be a lack of volume. So I definitely think he needs the takedowns here. But man, I've seen Zalgas stuff plenty of takedowns from Russians in the past. So I'm going to say Zalgas does one of his famous close split decision wins here. I'll go with him via a 29-28. Moving on to this next fight, man, we got a newer fight here. We got Movsar Evloev. He is minus 495 taking on Nick Arnie Lentz plus 395. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this fight, I just hate the fact that Nick Lentz is fighting at 145 pounds still. You think about a few years ago when he moved up to 155. I mean, we got to be thinking probably 5 years ago now. He was saying things in interviews like, oh, I'm never going to 145 pounds again. That was such a bad cut. And it's a seriously bad cut. Obviously, I'm not in the guy's personal life. I don't know if maybe the cut is easier now. Maybe he's got a better nutritionist. Maybe he's just, as times go by, things improve, and maybe he can make that cut a little easier now. But I still don't like it, man. He's just an aging fighter. His durability is waning a little bit. The timing's getting a little slower, and he's taken on a guy here who's working his way up to the rankings. Malvar is, he's super well-rounded. Most people will talk about his wrestling, but I've been a fan of this guy's striking since day one. I think he has extremely underrated hands, and I know he hasn't gotten a finish in the UFC yet, but he was finishing guys left and right on the regional scene. He does have decent power. He does have submission skills, and man, I'm looking at a prop right now of Movsar Evloev. I see wins inside the distance anywhere between 265 to plus 300, and I think taking that shot on a minus 500 guy to win inside the distance against an aging fighter, that might be worth it, man, even if it's just one unit. So I got Movsar, and I think he comes out here and gets his very first UFC finish. And not only that, you look at the guys Movsar has been fighting. You got Barzola, Grundy. These are younger, more durable guys than Nick Lentz. So, yeah, I think this is the spot for Movsar to have a breakout party with a finish here. So I'll go with him by a second round TKO. Will, who do you got?
I like the call for a stoppage here. I think that stoppage is coming soon. I really, really do think he's going to start putting it all together. I mean, he's the guy. I try and keep a close eye on the Russian kind of scene, coming up through all those great promotions that they have there, and it's quite hard with the amount of promotions they do have. But he was one that caught my eye initially. It was him, and there was Arman Tsarukyan, two guys I am super, super high on. It. I think loads of other people are as well. But I like the fact that he's went to American Top Team. He's got himself out of Russia. Get some new looks over there. Probably the best gym there is. I think ATT, it's kind of undisputed that they are the best gym out there, but there's many other good gyms. But I just like the way he's calm. I like his fight IQ. Doesn't really kind of push himself out there. Just really takes his shots. He plods along. fights to a game plan very, very well, and he's just very, very good in many, many areas. I mean, he came through a really tough spot with Grundy with that choke, and I've never been super, super high in Grundy, but I do think he poses problems for some guys out there, and he kind of came through that rough spot and then kind of dominated through there. I like him in this one here over Lentz for the simple reason Nick Lentz was talking all this about eye injuries and I think he had surgeries and so on, and that's never a good look when you're 38, 39 years old with over 40 fights in the UFC. So his career's really at different parts of their career. Lentz has not got all that many fights left, I don't think, and then you've got Movsar, who I definitely think can be in the title talk at this division. I do think I'd love to see him at 135. I think that he can make 135. He's fought there in the past. I think he could be a good addition down there, but maybe he feels better at 145, and he'll maybe start to see more kind of finishing prowess from him. So I kind of like taking a shot with him kind of inside the distance here, because I think it is coming soon. I think he's pretty safe to win this fight, not unless Lentz kind of jumps on a guillotine, which might be kind of one of his only ways to kind of win this fight here. His striking is something that, as the years have kind of went on in the UFC, and especially since I got with, I think it's Henry Hooft in Florida, that you've definitely started to see more variation with his striking, head kicks, he will attack the body. But I think Movsar just rolls in this spot here. I think that he's in a good spot, and this is a big name with a guy with a lot of experience. I think he rolls in this one here. And I'm going to take him inside the distance as well. So if you put money down on that, all the best.
Appreciate it, man. So moving on to the next fight of the night. This is an interesting one because of the line flip, man. So we had Mahmoud Muradov. He opened the underdog. He is now the favorite. He's taking on Andrew Sanchez. You can get Andrew Sanchez now at plus 120, man. So if you thought that opener was right, you for sure should go in on Andrew Sanchez right now. But I don't think that opener was right personally. I do favor Mahmoud Muradov here. I think he is a good prospect. I don't think this is a Wellington Turman situation. I mean, you're not going to come out here and see Andrew Sanchez hurt a striker caliber of Muradov on the feet. I mean, you got to favor Muradov striking here. Although, you absolutely got to give Andrew Sanchez all the respect in the world. His striking for sure has come a long way. And I would even say it might even be a little better than average, but I don't think he's on Muradov's level on the feet. I think he's got to wrestle here, and he can do it. He's got that wrestling background. He's a big, strong guy. It's just we haven't seen him wrestle in a while. It's mostly been striking, and when you look back at the fights where he has wrestled, that's where the cardio issues have come into play. So I think even if Andrew Sanchez comes out here wrestle heavy, maybe gets a takedown or two on Muradov, complete possibility. I'm just not completely convinced that he can keep it up for a 3-round pace here. I think Muradov is a guy who he's going to put it on Sanchez on the feet, man. And I don't think he's some kind of fish out of water on the mat either. I can see him working his way back up to the feet, just making Andrew work. I think he'll be the fresher guy as the fight goes along. We've seen it a few times. I'm going to pick Muradov to TKO Sanchez here in the 3rd round. That has been a common theme in Andrew Sanchez's losses in the past, and I think it happens here. Who do you got, Will?
Yeah, I'm on the Muradov side as well. I like. I think he's an interesting kind of prospect to me as Muradov, because he came through a really good promotion in the Czech Republic called Octagon, which, if you guys don't know, you should really kind of keep an eye on, because there's good fighters coming out of there. There's Dvorak, who fights at flyweight, who is really come in and kind of lit up the UFC with a couple of really solid wins and insert himself in the rankings there. And they put on some really good fights. And I came across him actually watching Dvorak main event, I think it was, and I was like, I was quite interested. He was big, he was strong, he was catching guys at the end of his shots. And just like throwing these guys to the ground, big slams, non-stop pace, and then he's coming to the UFC, and I think he's been really an interesting addition to the UFC with his 2 wins, and he kind of accumulated that with a beautiful, beautiful overhand right against Trevor Smith last time out. Now, Alessio, we've seen at the weekend there, he is a tough out. I do think he is a tough fighter to face. He's not the greatest to look good against, but I thought his stock went up in that performance. Then he got that stoppage. And then 2020 was really a year that just never really started from him. He had big fights lined up. I mean, Kevin Holland and Antonio Carlos Jr., they were all rumoured to be fighting him. So I think he's going to be like re-energized, come back in here. Andrew Sanchez, I mean, he looked fantastic against Wellington Turman, and I don't know whether it's improved striking on his part, which I do think it has been getting better, but Turman to me was just leaning into that fight too quick. He was coming into that fight. I thought if he could have kind of initially got through the first round, I think he could have started to take over rounds 2 and 3, but at the end he couldn't really survive, and then ended up taking a right cross, and then got ground and pounded out. I like Muradov to kind of really stay light on his feet, keep his back off the cage, stay in the middle of the cage, pop that long jab of his that he's got, and just kind of angle off, because he's a guy that never really stops moving. So I've got Muradov here. I think he can take out Sanchez late. So, and I'm interested in this guy as a kind of DraftKings play a little bit, because I think that he could get a knockout kind of in this one here. I'm interested in this whole new DraftKings kind of layout, because it's I think it's a good thing, but I'm still getting my head around it a little bit. But no, I'm going to pick Muradov for the win here. I think he knocks out Sanchez in round number 2.
So speaking of DraftKings, if we can just sway away from the fights for 1 second. So I was going to look and see. So Michael Chiesa yesterday, it was yesterday. He put up, obviously a great performance against Magny. So looking at Chiesa's points, he put up 101.03. I see points for significant strikes, takedowns, win by decision, strikes, control time. If you look at the new rules, they still have reverses on there. It says you get 5 points for reverse. I'm assuming you saw the fight. Michael Chiesa had at least 1 or 2 reverses there. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I think, I don't know. Because if you go click on the contest, look at the rules. Obviously, advances are gone. They were replaced by the control time. You still see reverse on there, but dude, Neil Magny took down Chiesa a couple times and was immediately reversed. So I'm not sure what's going on with those extra 10 points that are missing. I think DraftKings has a lot of work to do. I'm with you. I'm not really sure how I feel about the scoring yet. I guess the one biggest positive I would take away, I like the time for the control time points. I think that's going to eliminate a lot less ties. We're seeing these weird ass scores now, like 101.03. Before it wasn't like that. It was just these flat scores. So I kind of like that aspect of it. I like that they're giving guys points for strikes, not just significant strikes now too. I mean, what was the fight not too long ago where I believe it was the Korean guy fought John Phillips, or who just beat John Phillips and landed like 300 strikes?
Park,
yeah. Yeah, Park landed like 300 strikes in that fight and got like 50 fucking DraftKings points. It was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. So I think it's a step in the right direction. If I had to say right now, I do like the new scoring, but I think they got to figure something out with the reverse. Either remove that off the rules because that's what they're advertising, or give guys points for the reverses. So, and after this, I'll probably step away and look and see if they gave anybody else reverse points, because that's just weird to me. But anyway, enough of a ramble on that. Next fight of the night. We got one of the biggest favorites of the card here. Actually, I believe he is the biggest favorite of the card, but other than Movzar. We got Khalil Rountree, minus 325. He's taking on Marcin Prachnio, plus 265. And this is first and foremost, this is a DraftKings fight right here. I mean, one of these guys is going to get put out, in my opinion. So let's take a look at doesn't go to decision. I'm seeing minus 400. I think that should be doubled if we're being honest here. Both guys have been brutally put out multiple times. That's just their styles. Like, I'm not convinced Prachnio can stay standing if he gets hit flush. I'm not sure Khalil Rountree can stay standing if he gets hit with something. I mean, Prachnio, okay, so we just had, who was it? Vinicius Mejia became the second guy in UFC history to go 0-4 in the UFC with 4 finish losses. We have Marcin Prachnio here on Saturday aiming. Well, I shouldn't say aiming. He's certainly not aiming for it, but there's a chance Marcin Prachnio could become the third guy to lose 4 times in a row via finish 0-4. But I got to say, man, like, if there's one redeeming quality in Prachnio, he's got power. You go in his regional scene, he can certainly put guys out, and Khalil Rountree is someone I don't want to bet. Like, even though he's fighting Prachnio, I don't want minus 325 on Rountree. Like, we know, I don't want to call him a mental midget, but sometimes it's not on there. Sometimes he's in a better place. Sometimes he's not in a good place. Like the Eric Anders fight, obviously, just coming fresh off of Thailand, he was pretty confident. And I feel like as soon as he dropped Anders once in that fight, like you could just see the confidence rise. He's like a very hot and cold mentally fighter, but he was just talking about retirement, man. Like a year ago, he was saying my next fight's going to be my last. And apparently that's not the case anymore. He wants to keep the career going, but you obviously got to be cautious about guys that even talk about that. So Khalil Rountree is a guy, in my opinion, you can't bet at minus 325. If you want to plug him in on DraftKings, pay up there. Of course, do that because if he wins, it probably will be a knockout. Prachnio, one of the cheapest guys on the slate. If he wins, it'll probably be a knockout. So like, love this fight for DraftKings. I'm going to go with Khalil by KO. He is the better fighter, in my opinion. He's probably more powerful. He's the better athlete, just overall more technical. Like he deserves to be a big favorite here. You just can't touch it. So yeah, I got Khalil. Who do you got?
I think you brought up the whole mentality thing with Khalil Rountree, and I seen this firsthand in Glasgow when he fought Paul Craig. Like, from what I hear from other people that have been around Khalil beforehand, pretty nice guy, go lucky, likes to kind of joke around a little bit. That fight week, he was like deadly serious. I actually got my picture taken with him, and the guy is like stone-faced. You couldn't speak to him. He wasn't responding. He was keeping himself very, very kind of level-headed. Knew he was coming into kind of Lions Den, being in Scotland. He was getting heckled by some of the fans that were saying that Craig's going to submit you, he's going to do this. And I remember being there, and he was not taking any of it on. And then he went into that fight, and he absolutely ran through Paul Craig in that spot there. And then you've kind of seen him move where he said some things, and he's got inside his own head. And you're just not sure kind of what guy's going to turn up, because when he does turn up, he turns it on. He's got big power. We're talking about DraftKings. This could be one of the first fights here where we get that big bonus early on, and it could definitely happen here because Prachnio, what we've seen in the past is he runs forward, chin ready there, clear with that big power. I mean, I think he could be the first fighter with 4 fights in the UFC, 4 first-round losses against himself as well via TKO, I think it is. So that's not a good look. I think it's all there for Khalil. I don't know what his training situation for this camp's been, because I know he's a guy that likes to kind of move around. He's been in Thailand. He's been over here in Europe, I believe, as well. So I'm more on the Khalil side. I don't want to pay that price. I'm going to sit back and watch this one. Hopefully we get a nice quick knockout and we can kind of move up the card here. But I'm going to go Khalil Rountree. I'm going to go a first-round knockout.
All right, so moving on. We got a good women's fight here, man. We got Sarah McMann. She's minus 130. She's taking on Juliana Pena, plus 110. I'll let you start with this one.
That's another fight I'm going to sit back and watch. I've got no trust with either kind of girl here. You can't really trust Sarah McMann outside of the first round. And then Juliana Pena, you can't really trust her to not be on her back for parts of the fight there, because her takedown defense is so bad. I kind of learned my lesson with Sarah McMann back in the day, where I bet on a spot there, really confident, and then she kind of shut the bed big time there. And then since then, I've kind of been on the right sides of fading her in spots. And I'm kind of thinking this could be one of the spots that you can maybe get her at, but it might also be one of the spots where she comes out here and kind of looks dominant for at least a couple of rounds and wins pretty handily, a 29-28 decision. Because, like I say, Pena, to me, it's kind of interesting me because she was ascending to be a pretty big star in that division, and she's kind of fell off. She had troubles outside the octagon. She had a daughter, but I still think that she's quite young. Let me bring that up, because I don't know her age. So she's 31.
31.
So that's she's not even that old still. So she can maybe start to turn that around, and we start to see her make a kind of another run. But like the spot's getting like submitted by JDR. I mean, whoever, if you bet that, like, come to me and, like, I will shake your hand for that, because I would never have predicted that in a million years. But to me, the kind of way I see this fight, Sarah starting off early, getting takedowns, being dominant on there. And then once it starts going into 2 and 3, I'm just interested to see if she can maintain that. If she can, I think she can roll out a decision win, maybe even get a submission out of there. Because if Jermaine Durandamy's out here submitting you, Sarah McMann with those big arms that she's got in the power, and she's shown that she can submit girls in the past, can possibly do that. I'm going to roll on the Juliana Pena side though. I think that she starts to come into the second round. I can see her maybe getting into a position where she's on top, dominating a little bit, and then I think she wins a close 29-28 decision that could go either way. So not real confident in the fight pick, but I'm gonna roll with Pena as a dog there, and hopefully she comes through. But I can't trust either girl.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you for picking against a 40-year-old who has, let's be honest, she has quit in the past. But I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, man. I got Sarah McMann here, and obviously it's hard to be overly confident, but we're looking at the lines, and I see minus 130 on Sarah McMann. I mean, oh man, even taking into account, like knowing in my head all the times that Sarah has, had a dominant first round and then she kind of fell apart later in the fight, even knowing all that, man, I still tend to cap her a little bit higher than minus 130. So not only do I think Sarah McMann is like overall better athlete, she's reached a title shot. Although, yeah, it was forever ago, but I just view her as the higher caliber girl. And then stylistically, I think this is a bad matchup for Pena. You can look on there, you can see that 29% takedown defense. She has been taken down a lot. She's been submitted by multiple strikers. I mean, so we can worry about the second round for McMann, but y'all know there's a chance Sarah McMann can just take down Juliana Pena and slap on that arm triangle right away. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And you can bring up, yeah, she's 40 years old. I mean, dude, I'd love to be in as shape as Sarah McMann at 40 years old. She's one of the best in shape 40-year-old I've ever seen. She's an Olympian. We all know these Olympians age quite differently. I mean, look at Yoel Romero. And yeah, Sarah McMann, she looks in great shape. I know it's been a while, but I'm going to confidently pick her to come out here and wrestle Juliana Pena. I'm going to pick her to get a submission in the first round, but man, I don't know if Juliana Pena even can come out here and, man, it's tough to say because, Sarah did lose to Marion Renault. So, like, I can't be too shocked if she loses to Pena. I'm just very torn here, man, because I feel confident. Like, I feel like I have a good read, but we know what Sarah has done in the past, and there's entirely a possibility it could happen again. But skill for skill, man, I see Sarah wrestling Juliana Pena's face off. So, yeah, I'm going to go with her to slap on that arm triangle in round one. So, moving on. Next fight. This is one I don't really have a good read on. So, I'll let my boy Will go first on this one. We got Brad Tavares. He's a slight favorite, taking on Antonio Carlos Jr. He's plus 109. I'm bouncing back and forth, man. Who do you have?
Yeah, first of all, is my camera looking okay? It's a little bit fuzzy.
It is fuzzy.
Shit. Let me bring this up. Might have to take this new webcam shit. So let me bring this down.
I feel your pain. My old laptop's webcam was shit, so I had to buy like a shitty $20 webcam, but now I just got a new laptop, so hopefully I'm looking a little more crisp than normal. But if you can't figure that out, you can just go right on with the fight breakdown. Oh, much better.
There we go. I took the old one off. Fuck it. So, okay, ECG and Brad Tavares, like pink slip match, in my opinion, both guys coming off losses. I mean, when you look at the losses that Tavares has had, not bad losses at all. So, but you've got to think the confidence is kind of very, very low. Carlos Jr., it's the same. I mean, he had some spots in that Uriah Hall fight where he had opportunities and really never kind of ran through with it. I feel, and I felt this over the weekend, I feel like Carlos Jr. is going to be my pick here. And I really actually was very kind of close to betting him last weekend. But one of the things for this year is not rushing into like first looks on fighters and trying, because I get my predictions out so early that it kind of gives me time throughout the week to maybe see how things are going and seeing what I'm hearing and the interviews and such. And you might lose value in the line, but I want to make sure that now that I've got increased stakes in fights, I don't want to be wasting money in spots. So this was one of the ones I thought, right, get into fight week, watch and see what's going on. And I watched a couple of fights earlier on. when I was at work, actually, on my lunch break, and I just can't really get the best of reads in this fight. I'm kind of like yourself here. My pick's Carlos Jr. because I feel like he can get the fight to the ground and have some top time and be a submission threat. And on the feet, I think he's a little bit, I don't want to say he's outgunned. I think he's the more cultured striker is definitely Tavares. I think he feints better. I think that he's got better footwork. I think he's got better angles, where Carlos Jr. is kind of really right in front of you. He doesn't really throw up much kind of definition with his striking and so on. But he is super dangerous, and that's kind of what he wants to do, is get that fight to the ground. I'm kind of leaning on the Carlos Jr. fight, and I've seen that the betting line's kind of shortened on him a little bit. So the money's definitely coming in on Carlos Jr. I'm going to take him via a very, very close run decision again. I think that I do think it's very close. Like I said, I've not got the best read, but like a pink slip in the poll match here, I think loser kind of leaves the UFC. But in saying that, we've got Marcin Prachnio fighting for the fourth time, so who knows? But high stakes in this one. I'm taking Carlos Jr.
Yeah, man. I mean, so I think the best version, like prime Brad Tavares, beats best version prime Antonio Carlos Jr. It's just, that's not what we're dealing with, man. Brad Tavares has been around for a long time. I mean, dude was on the Ultimate Fight. You know, he was on the Ultimate Fighter 11 years ago, and listen to a couple of his castmates, Court McGee and Kyle Noak. I mean, we're talking about guys who are at the tail end. I mean, Kyle Noak retired years ago. Court McGee probably soon. Now, I will say Brad Tavares was one of the youngest guys in that season. By the way, that was one of my favorite seasons. You had Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell as the coaches. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Brad Tavares has taken a couple bad losses. Even a few years ago, he was taking bad losses. You know, you remember the knockouts, Tim Bosch and Robert Whittaker on his come up. I want to say that was Robert Whittaker's first or second middleweight fight when he fought Brad Tavares. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Brad's a little weathered at this point. I know he's been taking knockout losses, and this is certainly a much different fight. Antonio Carlos Jr., you know, high level BJJ black belt. I want to say he flying armbarred Gary Tonin or some crazy shit like that. Like, the dude is an insane BJJ practitioner, and he's the younger guy here, man. He's like 30, 31. He's the underdog. He's got that DK grappling upside. So although I can't be that confident, because it hasn't been an easy run for Carlos Jr. either, I will go with Carlos Jr. as an underdog. I don't blame anybody for a bet, although I can't do it personally. I think he's the good DraftKings play. I haven't looked at salaries yet, but I'm assuming he's probably in the 7,000s. So yeah, I'm going to go the route of Carlos Jr. by a second round sub, but you know, be cautious for sure. So moving on, we got the main event of the prelims. We got Arman Tsarukyan. He's minus 290, taking on Nasrat Haqparast, plus 245. Will, who you got?
I've got my biggest bet I've ever had on Arman Tsarukyan. And if you like I say, I've been around a long time. I'm not one of these guys that max bet this, max bet that. But I've kind of laid down the gauntlet and kind of went after this one on Arman Tsarukyan. And after we have that massive run to 2020 where we had event after event, I say at Christmas, I'm not watching any fights, none at all. Gets to Christmas Day, and the missus and the daughter are fast asleep. They fall asleep for about 3 hours, and I end up watching fighting this. And before I know it, I've laid a shit ton of money down on Arman Tsarukyan. Now, I will say I've bet him since he came into the UFC. I bet him against Islam Makhachev. I think he was plus 400. I want to say in that spot, 300, 400, if I remember right. And from the minute, like I say, I knew who he was before he hit the UFC, and I really liked what I've seen then. And I've really, really, really liked what I've seen in his UFC tenure. Even in that loss to Makhachev, he only gained stock in that fight because he gave him a tough fight, got him momentarily to the ground, showed his defensive wrestling, that he can kind of stay on the ground, stay on his feet and not get taken down against one of the elite guys in the division, a top 10 guy. And then he moved on to Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who he's got, I don't want to say he's not the greatest fighter. I don't think it's not even the UFC anymore. He's in the NFL, but he's got a lot of weapons there, that big body kick. And I thought he fought really smart in that one, that he realized he had to get the win and kind of used his control, his fight IQ, his composure, which is something that really rings out in every fight that he's had in the UFC. as well as adding new wrinkles to his game. And then you move on to the Davy Hamos fight. Now, Davy's like dangerous in many aspects, big power. You stand there, he can hit you. You go to the ground. He's one of the best practitioners on the ground in BJJ that there is. And like he went into his guard and had no qualms about doing that. But as the fight went on, and Davy was getting more, he was kind of coming out. He was getting a bit more aggressive. He started to open his striking. He was doing spinning attacks. He was doing like 2-3 punch combos, mixing up to the body, then still going in for takedowns. Like the kid is really one of the better guys that I've seen come through at the age that he is, like 23, 24 years old. I've pinned him as a guy that can fight for the belt and maybe have the belt one day for the age that he's at. But when you look at this matchup here, I mean, I think the betting line's like way off. Like, I don't understand why he's any higher. I think I capped him probably around about 210, minus 210 myself. But when you see him up there, did you say 290?
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing to me. Like, because Nasrat is not... Like, these two guys have been put in this spot here for a reason. There's two guys coming through. Nasrat's had a couple of tough runs, tough looks in the kind of UFC, but you can see the talent that the guy has. He has very fast hands, very fluid with his striking. And once he gets that confidence going and he mixes up with the low kicks, the body shots, everything there, he's a really, really tough ask. I just think that Arman's, I think he can stay on the feet with him, but I think where his bread and butter in this fight is his grappling. He's been training with a 2016 Olympic gold medalist. Now, don't ask me to pronounce his name because there's too many A's, too many D's, and too many Z's in that name. So I'm going to be saying a name like that. But he's been out in LA, mixing it up there and getting some good looks. But what I like about him, he actually moves from kind of camp to camp. He goes from Tiger Muay Thai, he goes to American Top Team. He's been at Black House for this one. So he's been around. And when he goes back to Russia, he's with Peter Yan. So he gets the best looks that he can, and every fight that I've seen in his UFC tenure, he's made that jump up. And he fights smart. Like I said, he's very composed. And I just think that he's got a little bit too many weapons at this point for Nasrat Haqparast. But he's a great fighter. Betting line's off. I got him at minus 175. I think I sniped that big time. And like I say, it's the biggest bet I've ever had. I've had a lot of... Tell you what, I didn't realise how popular Nasrat Haqparast was until I put out my predictions, and I've been hit up in emails, comments on YouTube and everything. That guy's got a serious ton of fans out there, and they're like, you're wrong, this, that, da, da, da. I was like, let the best man win. My money's already down. I've got nothing but respect for Nasrat and his skills, but I just think that this guy, by the end of this year, I think he could be a force in the top 10 in that division. So I've got Arman Tsarukyan. I think he can sub him. I think he can win a comprehensive decision. So I've got my 30-27 decision.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is such a good fight. Nasrat has been, when Nasrat came into the UFC, not many people really even cared about him, but what really caught people's attentions were very, very fast improvements. He's a very good striker. He's got natural power. You could see that the holes in his wrestling and ground game were slowly getting filled up. And I will say, last time out, I know we're talking about a 6-1, very unexperienced guy, but that guy Munoz he fought, credentialed wrestler, really, really good wrestler. And Nasrat came out and stuffed 7 out of 8 takedown attempts, which was very, very impressive to me. Big Nasrat fan. However, I do think I get the line movement on Arman Tsarukyan. I mean, I don't need to sit here and echo everything Will just said, but I think this kid is uber talented, very well-rounded, great mind for the sport, quick learner, good people around him. I mean, literally every, checkbox you could fill for Arman Tsarukyan, he pretty much covers it all. And man, I mean, I have a hard time thinking Nasrat will stuff the takedowns. Maybe he could stuff a few, but I mean, I think Arman brings a pretty nice pace to the table. I think he's not gonna get discouraged if Nasrat stuffs the first or even first couple. He's gonna keep going at him, and even with the striking, bro. Like maybe if these guys fought a couple years ago, I'd favor Nasrat comfortably with the striking. But man, Arman just gets better every fight, and I think he might even have the advantage there too, man. But you can't sleep on the power of Nasrat. I mean, And the dude's experienced at this point now too. He's got a lot of UFC fights. He does have more than Tsarukyan. He is I would say he is the more polished fighter, although, obviously Arman Tsarukyan has the higher ceiling. It's just, is Arman ready for Haqparast? And I think he is. I think the line is justified. So I'm going to go with Arman Tsarukyan to take a 30-27 unanimous decision here. Now, moving on, we got the main card. We got Amanda Ribas, minus 300. She's taking on Marina Rodriguez, plus 250. I guess I'll start with this one, man. I mean, the first thing I think of when I try to see how this fight will go, I mean, Marina Rodriguez just doesn't really know how to stuff a takedown. Like, I don't want to disrespect her, but if you watch her career, it is what it is. Like, that's just not her bread and butter, man. I mean, she's a striker first and foremost. And, I think she just got to MMA too late. I think when she started MMA, she either late 20s or 30 years old. I think that's just a case of, maybe if she would have started MMA a little bit earlier, it would have been a different story, but we just haven't seen, I guess maybe little improvements. Like, she has got up a couple times, but man, she just can't stuff a takedown. And I know it's Carla, I know it's these girls, but I think Amanda Ribas is on her way up to a top 10 ranking. I think this girl's very good. I don't see any reason why she shouldn't be able to do the same thing. And people will talk about how the Carla fight was a split with Marina, but that's on Carla, bro. That was totally on Carla with, rolling for those ankle locks when she had, she wasn't playing a position over submission. Like, she got completely out of character and tried to get fancy, tried to get a sub, and ended up costing her rounds, man. Almost cost her the fight. Amanda Ribas isn't going to do some shit like that. She's going to stay disciplined, and she's going to do exactly what she needs to do here. Now, I don't think you can bet Amanda Ribas at minus 300, because if this fight does stay standing, you got to favor Marina Rodriguez pretty heavily, man. And who knows? Maybe this is the fight. Maybe this is the fight where she finally comes out, stuffs a couple takedowns. Maybe she lands a hard knee to the body, maybe takes some wind out of Ribas, and it's just smooth sailing for Marina from there. I mean, this is a total possibility. This is a fight. I think the value is on Marina Rodriguez at plus 250. I just can't do it personally because, I got to see her stuff the takedowns first, man. I just haven't seen it. So this is just a complete pass for me from a betting perspective. I will go with Ribas to pick up the win here, 29-28, but plus 250 your pass, in my opinion. Who you got, Will?
Interesting fight to me, because I'm one of these people that I watch Marina Rodriguez and I'm thinking, once this chick puts it all together and she can stuff takedowns, she's going to put some beatings on some girls big time. And I think it's coming. But I'm not sure I don't know whether she's taken enough time out to kind of fill those gaps that are kind of needed. And there's definitely gaps there in our ground game that you can get her down there now. And seeing that, Carla's she probably is the best wrestler in that division. So going down in there and having a close fight with Carla's not a bad thing. But like I say, I don't trust her to kind of fight smart and like fight at distance, because she's one of those fighters that likes to get in close, use her elbows, use her knees, clinch up. She's got beautiful Muay Thai. And she is one of those girls that, like I say, I am on with you here. There's a lot of love for the Amanda Ribas, and she is the kind of darling of the kind of UFC coming through. And this week especially, we've seen the hype trains kind of get derailed. Buckley last week, we had Muna Lizez kind of get ran through a little bit last night. So she's the next one up here, where everyone's got a lot of stock in her. I think the UFC has as well. But there is a big gap here. If she gets this to the ground, I think that she can roll into getting submissions and so on. Like I said, but I am a little bit kind of worried that she maybe wants to test her striking. And if you go way, way back before her UFC tenure, she got like knocked dead by I think it's Polyana Viana that caught her, which is a little bit. You're going back. That happens with fighters though. Like you can't really hold much stock in that, but. I just think she's going to find a way to get this to the ground. I've been super impressed when her UFC tenure. I look back at just my betting record at the end of the year, and I was like, I can't believe I got her as a betting underdog against Emily Whitmire, like plus 160. I'm like, shit. So, and now she's minus 300 in this spot here, and she's moving herself up into those rankings. I think she finds a way to get it to the ground, and once she does, she finds a way to get submission. She's very, very, very slick. Like that, she's moved herself out to the American top team. They're well established. They've got a lot of good women kind of there, and she's getting good looks everywhere. So I'll go Amanda Ribas, but I'm like yourself. I think the value is on Marina Rodriguez. I just don't trust her to really fight smart, but it could also be one of those things here where Ribas gets her down early, and it wouldn't surprise me if she gets a first round submission. So I will go Amanda Ribas for the W here.
All right, so moving on to this is a banger, man. We got Matt the Steamroller Frevola. He's plus 135. He's taking on Ottman Azaitar, minus 155. We were kind of talking about this one before we got on air here. Honestly, man, I think Matt Frevola is live here. I get the underdog shot. I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to see where the lines go the next couple days. If it gets worse, I'm happy to pass. If it gets up to plus 150, I like that, man. I think Matt Frevola is a good test for Azaitar. It's almost comparable to the main event we have in a sense that Azaitar will, he might be favored for a reason here. I think round 1 KO for Azaitar might be one of the most likely situations in this fight, so I get why he's favored. It's just if he doesn't get that first round KO, I think Matt Frevola is going to put some pressure on him, man. I think he's going to get some takedowns. I think he's going to work some ground and pound on Azaitar. I think he's going to make it just real ugly. I think he's going to, push him against the cage, work the clinch game, knees to the thighs. Like, he's just going to make this fight real dirty. It's just, I don't know. Is he going to survive the first round? It's hard to say. He has been floored before against, I believe, Polo Reyes in his UFC debut. But if you watch that fight, that was kind of a very low IQ performance from Frevola. I mean, one doesn't simply run straight towards Polo Reyes. I know Polo Reyes ain't in the UFC anymore and, not the greatest fighter in the world, but, dude, you don't run straight in front of Polo Reyes. That guy can crack. So, I don't know. If Frevola's smart here, maybe he should be the favorite. It's just hard to fade that power. That's kind of why I'm looking for this plus 150. I hope it gets there. So I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Matt Frevola. I'm going to say he takes a smarter approach here. I think maybe he could work some kicks, some calf kicks, just slow down Azaitar, take away that power. Another thing, Frevola has much more UFC experience than Azaitar at this point. Frevola's been around for a while now, man, and I saw him fight live against Luis Pena in Tampa. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I've been to a few UFC events now, I believe 5, and I've never seen the kind of fan support that I saw for Matt Frevola. Well, I'm not joking when I tell you this dude had an entire section of people just for him, all wearing his shirt, all chanting. I mean, you can even hear it in the fight when you watch the replay, man. I mean, this guy's got a lot of support. I'm a fan. I like Matt Frevola, so I'm going to go with him for the upset, 29-28. Who you got?
I'm on the opposite side. I'm on the Azaitar side, but he's another guy like I was saying before with Carlos Jr. that I'm kind of sitting back and watching and seeing where the betting line's going, and I would like to see more of him. That's the thing. We've not seen a hell of a lot. Really, when you watch all these fights outside the UFC as well, like there's a lot of first round finishes. There is a third round one out there where he had to come through some spots there, and but this could be a fight that I think it's all to me. It's all on Frevola because Azaitar is what he is. He's very aggressive. He's an all-out power puncher that likes to put it on you. And if he catches you, like we've seen, he can put you down instantly. And Frevola, like you said, it's like he kind of fought a little bit silly in that debut. Maybe the UFC kind of jitters. He just wanted to get them out there, and then you don't run at someone like Polo Reyes because that guy will put you on your ass. And this guy is kind of more of the ilk of kind of Polo Reyes. He will plant his feet, he will throw that big right hand, and he can put you down. But I'm just wanting to see a little bit more. I am very tempted with Azaitar. If that line starts to come down a little bit, I am really interested. But I've got a funny feeling that the line might only continue to go up for Azaitar because this guy, I mean, if this guy's a bit of I don't want to say he's a big deal in the Middle East, But this guy rolls with some serious people in that middle.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, he is. Like you see some of the pictures of who he's with. Like he's had a lot of investment behind him. There's the stories of him and his brother being kind of shady in Germany, doing some bad shit. But like I say, let's not talk about that. And just in case he turns up one day and ask what's up. But like I said, I'm ready to kind of see a little bit more of him, and this is something that I think Matt Frevola will kind of bring out. And I think this will be a bit of a dogfight. I can see spots where Frevola I can either see Ottman catching him early, or this could be a fight where numerous takedowns, he finds a way back to his feet, but Matt just keeps that grind on him. And I'm interested to see if he can maintain through that fight with Frevola being that aggressive on him. So I am going to go. Got feeling when I heard about this fight, and when I watch it, it's like I'm going to stick with a knockout for Azaitar, but I am interested to see if it goes on past the 5-minute stage. But being in the Middle East and being in that environment, man, that's going to be huge for Azaitar and getting back there. So I'm going to take Azaitar on a TKO at some spot in this fight, but really good fight. Looking forward to it.
Sure, and I forgot to mention this is also within my favorite top 3 or so fights for DraftKings. I mean, you're probably going to get either an Azaitar KO round 1, or you're going to get a pretty cheap underdog winning via takedowns, control time. So I love both spots for DraftKings here. So definitely target this fight up. So moving on, the feature bout. This is an interesting one, man. I mean, I almost thought these two have fought before just because they have so many common opponents. They've crossed paths. We got JoJo Calderwood, -120, taking on Jessica Eye, +100. Obviously, Will being the Scotsman he is, I'm going to let him take it away. Does Will have his fellow, Scotsman, Joanne Calderwood in this fight?
100%. Fuck, I'm never going against my country. No, but like I say, I think there's bad blood in this one. So I think this one could be really, really fun. There's a lot of shit talking back and forward. And I know JoJo, once she's kind of got of someone that she's not particularly fond of, she can really bring out the kind of best of herself. I think that she's had that in the past, but it's hard to really trust JoJo in my opinion at this spot now. She makes critical errors. She's for once in her life, like her fight life, she's very settled out there in Vegas. They've just opened Syndicate. I think they moved to a new unit in Vegas. Her and John Wood, who's a great coach for her to have, someone who I've always been a little bit skeptical of her being in a relationship with coaches, but maybe that's the type of person that she is, and she kind of needs that comfort, but she seems very set. I think she's engaged now, so moved to the new gym. But I mean, she still makes critical mistakes, and will that ever kind of fade away? I don't think it will, honestly. I think there's spots here where she's looked good. I thought the Chukagian fight, she looked very good. I thought she was a little bit unlucky there. Andrea Lee, I think me and you cashed her as a +200 dog maybe in that spot, I want to say. So she if this fight stays standing with these one, it's interesting because you've got the Muay Thai and the kickboxing of JoJo, and then you've kind of got the boxing of Jessica Eye. But I think Jessica can mix it up a little bit and take this to the ground. But I'm kind of a little bit afraid that JoJo might actually try that game plan and get caught out and get put on her back. So, like I say, this is a complete biased fight to me where I'm going to pick JoJo, but I think Jessica is I think she's still an underdog, isn't she? She's
+100.
+100. So, yeah, she's a dog. So, if you're inclined to kind of bet dogs, it's not a bad one, I don't think, to bet on. But like I say, I've got a biased pick here big time because I very rarely pick against JoJo just for the patriotic Scot in myself. But I'll sit back and watch this, hope that JoJo comes through, but don't fully trust it. I'll pick JoJo, though.
Man, I'm going to go with JoJo Calderwood here. I feel like she's got the advantage on the feet. I bet on JoJo in her last fight against Jennifer Maia. Obviously, I had no idea what to expect, but I mean, part of the reason I bet her there is because JoJo's been making me money. I mean, Will mentioned it. I mean, Andrea Lee, she came through there. The Chukagian fight was close, but I don't know, man. I just like what I'm seeing from JoJo lately. Will was mentioning Syndicate and John Wood and, how she's bounced back and forth between other gyms, but I think she found her home here, in my opinion. And I think we're dealing with prime JoJo Calderwood. I think we're dealing with prime Jessica Eye too. It's just, I don't know, man. I've lost so much money picking against so it's kind of the opposite here, where I've been cashing on JoJo and then I've been losing, fading Jessica I. So it's like if I were to bet JoJo here, what would come through? My continuation of cashing on JoJo or my continuation of losing on I? So I'm just staying away from this fight altogether. I think it probably will end up being close anyway. Like, man, when I watch tape on Jessica I against her opponents, I almost always come away thinking, yeah, dude, Jessica I, she's going to get outstruck. She's going to get out wrestled. Like, this girl's better than her. But she always has a way of making these fights close. Like, I had no idea she was going to make the fight against Chukagian that close now. I think that was a lack of volume from Chukagian in that fight. And I think Chukagian has gotten a little better since then. And then the Vivi Araujo fight, I faded her there as well. I was big on Araujo, but Araujo kind of gassed out. I think, again, she's patched up that hole as well. Then, obviously, her most recent fight, she lost to Calvillo, where, I mean, Calvillo is another girl similar to JoJo coming up from 115 up to 125, and Calvillo beat her bell to bell. That was pretty much complete domination, and I don't know if JoJo is going to come out here and do all that, but I don't know, man. I feel like ever since the Valentina Shevchenko loss, I don't know if it's been the same confidence from I. I know she got that Vivi win, man, but Vivi gassed bad. I don't think JoJo's going to gas bad here. I got JoJo. She's going to outstrike I here to a 29-28 unanimous decision. So moving on, we got the co-main event of the evening, man. I just cannot wait for this fight. We got Dan Hooker, minus 130. He's taking on the debuting Michael Chandler, plus 110. Will, who you got?
I'm going to go with my gut feeling here, and I'm going to go with the dog. I'm going to roll with Michael Chandler here. I've got some money on him. I've got 2 units on him at plus 120. And like I said, this was a gut feeling pick. I'm always a little bit wary of these big names coming into the UFC. I was very wary with Justin Gaethje, and you know exactly what you're going to get with that guy because he really only fights in one way. And then you've got Chandler coming in here, who I think this is the best wrestler that Dan Hooker's faced in the longest time, like pure wrestler. But he has made, and I made, this was one of the fights I watched over Christmas when we had a lot more time. I made sure that I went back and watched like featherweight Hooker, and not that it's really relevant nowadays, but I'm sure we all go into Fight Metric or Fight Stats and we look and we see like takedowns and so on. So I went back to watch the early featherweight days when he was getting taken down by like Yair Rodriguez and so on and so on. And you've got to remember, that's a big guy moving down to 145, like a big dude in Dan Hooker. So that's obviously taken a ton of stuff out of that guy. I think he's looked amazing since he's went to 155. He's elevated himself into, I think he's a perennial top 5 guy, but the guy gives you wars with guys who are in that top 5. We're coming off, like he's coming off 2 big brawls in 2020 with Paul Felder and Dustin Poirier, and I don't think that's kind of being mentioned enough. That guy took a lot of damage in that spot there, in those 2 fights especially. But he also kind of gave out a shit ton of punishment to 2 guys, very good guys in that division, very, very well established guys in that division, where Michael Chandler, you can't discredit what he's did in Bellator because he's been over there for probably 10 plus years. He's gave us some all-time great fights. And he's fought the best guys that he can fight at that time. And we've seen him in there. We've seen him submit dudes. We've seen him knock out dudes. And we've seen him like come back from devastating losses, devastating knockouts, injuries, and so on. So this guy is a consummate professional. I think he's all around a very, very good fighter. But then you look at Dan Hooker. I mean, the guy's long. If you get in close to this guy, he's got knees up the middles, he's got elbows, he can pressure you, he can push you back. I think he can be a little bit pressured too, where he can kind of be backed up a little bit once he starts to tire. But I'm just interested. The reason I took a shot on Chandler was I got feeling, I thought, right, this guy's going to come in here and do it. I think he's going to wrestle and he's going to mix up a little bit. Maybe I was a little bit kind of quick, kind of jumping on that because, like I said, I should maybe kind of sat back and watch. But I don't think enough's been played into Dan Hooker having 2 big fights. And I just think, I don't know, it's just got feeling I have it been like a 29-20 decision, but a wrestling-based decision. I feel like he's going to do that. But like I think you said to me, or you said in the chat that we're in, that about the holes in his game. Like, he has definitely, in my opinion, shored those holes up. But this, to me, against the best wrestler I think he's faced, I think that's going to come through here, and I've just got a gut feeling he's going to win a 29-28 decision. So that's why I threw some money down. I got a good dog odds. I don't know what the odds are on now. Let me just check. So he's plus 110. So yeah, it's not. I can see that kind of staying round about there. I will see. I do think money will come in on Hooker, but I'm kind of on the Chandler side in this one. I think a lot of people are kind of horned towards Hooker, but I'm on the Chandler side here. So yeah, I've got money down. I've got Chandler 29-28.
Well, I am going to respectfully disagree. I do have Dan the Hangman Hooker in this spot. Man, I mean, you mentioned those two wars. Not only those two wars, the Edson Barboza fight. Yeah, he took so much damage, but I mean, damn, the dude is tougher than a $2 steak. I mean, he can sure take it, and I mean, yeah, I mean we're in the game of fights here. Anything could happen, but I don't know if this is the point where I don't know if he's going to start declining because of all this damage. I mean, he's still a relatively young guy. He just turned 30. Um, Obviously, I think moving to 155 is, I mean, that's going to extend his career a lot. If he were to stay at 145, that would have been no good at all. But speaking of 145, like, dude is not even the same fighter. I mean, he went from losing to Maximo Blanco and Jason Knight to knocking out Gilbert Burns, you know, beating Ally Quinta, beating Paul Felder, beating James Vick, beating Jim Miller, beating Mark Diakiese. I mean, dude, he's got some great wins in the lightweight division, and even the two losses. I mean, Edson Barboza, you know, the Barboza one was pretty one-sided. I'll say that. That was, I mean, shit, that was probably Edson's best performance within the last few years, if I'm being honest. And then the Poirier fight, that's one where Hooker definitely had a lot more success. I think you can argue Hooker won one or two rounds in that fight. The right guy won, of course, with Poirier, but Hooker looked good. Um, it's been half a year since that fight. I think he's had enough time to recover. And when it comes to how these guys match up, obviously, you know, you brought it up. Michael Chandler is a stud wrestler, amazing credentials. That is how he won a lot of his fights, and that's probably how he has to win this fight. It's just Hooker's takedown defense has looked a lot better at 155 as well. That's one of many things that has improved with this move to 155, you know. And not only is the takedown defense itself good, he has these great counters to the takedowns as well. You know, he has those knees, you know, he has those chokes, really long arms. I mean, he can catch these guys' necks and, you know, really unassuming positions. So, man, I think it's going to be I don't know. I have this gut feeling that Michael Chandler is going to come in here and try to take Dan Hooker's head off. That is actually what Michael Chandler's been doing in his recent Bellator fights. And, you know, props to him. He came out and, you know, he smoked Benson Henderson. He smoked Sidney Outlaw on these guys. But, like, yeah, these are the guys Michael Chandler's been beating. Benson Henderson, Sidney Outlaw, Brett Primus, Brandon Gertz, Coyote Yamauchi. I mean, man, I hate to say it, but I just feel like Michael Chandler's getting to the UFC a little late here. I mentioned he had that like fight of the year a decade ago against Eddie Alvarez. I mean, we're talking a long ass time ago. This guy's been around forever. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was going to start dropping off when he took two straight losses to Will Brooks. But, like, I think that was more of a case of Will Brooks, just for whatever reason, had Michael Chandler's numbers. Michael Chandler definitely didn't decline after those fights. In fact, he got a little better, but that was like 6 years ago. I think now might be the time where, you know, he's about to turn 35. I mentioned Hooker's 30. I like the youth advantage, the size advantage. I mean, we're mentioning how he moved up from 145. He's still a huge guy at 155. I mean, him and Poirier both. It's just so crazy they made 145. But yeah, I like Hooker in this fight. I think he can outstrike Chandler here to a 30-27, or I think he could catch him with one of those knees, one of those chokes. We'll see what happens. I definitely have respect for Chandler. I do expect him to land a takedown or two in this fight, and I am thinking about betting Hooker. I would need minus 150 or better. That's where it is. It's minus 130 right now, so I think you're going to see me having a bet on Dan Hooker sometime within the next day or so. So, yeah, I'm going to go with him. So, guys, we're here. Main event time. This is what we're here for, man. We got Conor McGregor. He is let's see these betting lines now. It just keeps going up every minute, huh? Minus 290 taking on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. 245, a rematch, UFC 178, 2014, 7 years ago. Here we are again. We kind of talked about it at the beginning. Will, who do you have to win this fight?
Yeah, I might as well just come out and say it straight away, but I'm picking Conor McGregor. It's I'm not going to sit here with a Conor McGregor shirt on and a picture behind me and not pick the guy in a fight he's already won before. But it's a great fight overall because you've seen since then, like it's so interesting to me, like going back and watching Embedded and how much emotion was invested from both guys in that fight. And Conor, I think he was just doing it to wind up Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier was falling for it left, right, and centre. And I think he got overrun with all the emotion, all the Irish fans that were there. You've seen him at the weigh-ins where like he's shouting at the fans, "This is my house, you're my country," da 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 da. Because there was so many Irish guys there, and to me that was just the rocket ship of Conor McGregor going off. And I remember Twitter that week, and everybody thought that Dustin Poirier was the guy that was going to come in here and stop the hype train. I remember there was a beautiful, I can't remember for the life of me who made this poster, and it was just Dustin Poirier as a train just steamrolling through Conor McGregor. And like I say, at that point, the people here in Europe, we knew what was coming with Conor McGregor, and the people in America were probably starting to find out who he was with a couple of fights that he already had. And then from there, it's like monumental to where the guys went. And I mean, he's made some bad decisions and so on, but what I like is just watching from then and all the way through what's happened with both guys. You can't just talk about Conor going in there, beating Aldo, moving up to 155, winning the belt there, having one of the biggest fights, pay-per-view fights of all time against Floyd Mayweather, and not mention the kind of rise of Dustin Poirier since then, because he took that loss pretty hard. I think that was his last fight at featherweight, moved up to lightweight, and I mean, he's fought the who's who in that division, period. And he's did it more than once. He fought Alvarez twice, he fought Gaethje, he fought Pettis, he fought Habibi. He's been in there with everybody, like, and even when he's losing, he's coming back against top guys. He's fighting Dan Hooker, and he's given us great fights. So this is like you said at the start of the show, a Hall of Famer, and he worked himself all the way up to getting that interim title, and that was one of my favorite moments of the year, was seeing him. It doesn't matter if it's an interim title or not. Like, he got himself a UFC belt. He wanted that belt, and he did it against one of the probably, I want to say, the greatest featherweight of all time, who probably gave us one of the greatest performances last week of all time. So he's beat, like, when you look at records and like the people that they both beat, it's incredible. But when I look at skill for skill, I think that Conor McGregor's still a little bit underrated. I think he's got a lot of skills in many areas. He seems to me like, physique-wise, I think he's put a lot into like really putting himself into 155 and being that guy. He's not fluctuating between weights. He's focused at 155, wants the competition. But these guys still fought once before, and the fight lasted 90 seconds. And he's got the game changer. He's got that power there, where I don't think that Poirier's got that. I think he's a death by 1,000 cuts. And if he starts to turn it on Conor here, and Conor starts to fade the slightest bit, he's in some deep shit, and he's going to be in some big trouble. Now, he's got a lot of weapons. I still don't think we've seen Conor's kicking game in the UFC. That's something that before his UFC run was one of the biggest things. He's kicking, he's extreme spin kicks and so on, but we've seen a little bit of it. But I'm kind of like the Dustin Poirier side here. I like to see if this gets a little bit of a war and see what Conor's really made of, because Dustin's not going to back down. And if he can start to absorb some of those shots that he couldn't absorb at 145, then this fight's going to be bananas. Because I think Conor can still throw big blows 15 minutes into the fight, but they're maybe not going to be knockout blows that really put you down as quick as what they did in the past. So, yeah, I love this fight. I love everything that's kind of what's going on this week with the charity and everything. I just think it's two great fighters, two great men. especially Poirier. Poirier is the man. Poirier, like, if you know, you know with that guy, he is one of the. If you ever get a chance to meet that guy, like, he is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. And if you have that conversation and you run into him again, he remembers exactly who you are. He will give you time of day. He sometimes in the past he's reached out to me and asked how I was, because I've had dinner with him in Ireland. I've had numerous packages that he sent me with a couple of different things. So great guy, great fighter. I think Conor has just got that death stroke that can put you out, and I think he gets it done in the first 7.5 to 10 minutes of the fight. So I've got Conor McGregor via knockout. I just think the power's too much, and I think the speed's too much, and I think he'll catch the chin of Poirier and put him out.
Man, very well said. This is an awesome rematch. I think this is one of the most perfect fights you could make for both guys, honestly. Like, this is probably something Dustin has wanted to re-avenge for a very, very long time. I'm sure he loves that it's at 155 this time. And McGregor, I mean, McGregor's got a lot to prove, man. I mean, everything he's gone through. I know he came back against Cerrone last year, first round knockout in like 30 seconds, but I think we can all comfortably agree this is a huge step up from Cowboy Cerrone. But man, I mean, yeah, we saw it end 90 seconds last time. I know it was a different weight class, but I'm not so sure how much that matters. I think, you can disprove the theory right away that his chin might be better at 155. He was knocked unconscious by Michael Johnson at 155 pounds. And, he's been hurt a few times. He's been taking a lot of damage. Like, even with that Max Holloway win, ate a lot of shots in that fight. The Dan Hooker fight, even though he won that fight, ate a lot of shots in that fight. And I don't know if those guys don't quite have the same power of a Conor McGregor. And one thing I'll say about Conor in that Cerrone fight, I know it was very quick, but I loved the buildup in that fight. I thought I think he's over all the bullshit now. I think all the binging, all the crazy shit, maybe this is just me being hopeful, but I get the sense that all that shit's over. I get the sense that he wants to be more of a family man. I get the sense that he still really, really cares about his MMA legacy and feels like he's not done yet. And I think he also knows that if he loses this rematch to Dustin Poirier, man, it sounds disrespectful to Poirier to say this, but that'd be a little bit of a stain on Conor McGregor's career, because like that was one of the wins that really catapulted his career. And man, if he were to lose to a guy that he starched in 90 seconds, I mean, I think we're all going to be talking about Conor McGregor not being the same guy anymore. But I think that verdict is still out. I think Conor McGregor can still fight to the ability of a number one fighter in the division. I think now that Khabib is retired, I think Conor McGregor is very live to take that championship once again. So I think with a championship motivated, hopefully, clean Conor McGregor, I think he can come in here and do what he did last time. Maybe it's a little longer. Maybe it could be a little shorter. Maybe this could be that first 25.60 second DK bonus. Who knows? Either way, man, I got a bet here. This is the only bet I have right now. I put 3 units on the under 1.5 rounds plus 110. Was kind of surprised to see underdog money on under 1.5 rounds. All things considered, I would think it would be more like a slight favorite, but hey, at dog money, I'm willing to take the chance all day long that Conor McGregor comes in, does his thing. And man, like, I don't want to sit here and disrespect Poirier. That's not what I'm about whatsoever. I'm just speaking realistically here, and it's hard for me to be confident that he's going to eat those big shots. But I will say 110%, if he is able to eat those shots, if he is able to extend the fight, I mean, if this fight hits a round 3, I think we could be looking at live betting odds of a pick'em, because I would say that Dustin Poirier would probably be the fresher guy, and he's got more experience. I know Conor's been those championship rounds before, but I believe Dustin has a lot more experience over there. He's got more tools as well. If you give anybody a wrestling and grappling advantage, it's Dustin. So if I'm wrong about this under 1.5 rounds and this fight gets extended, I think Dustin Poirier has a very live chance. But Conor McGregor's the pick. I think the King is back, round 1 KO. So that's it. And that's my only bet. So I don't really have much to recap. So I just want to thank you guys very much for tuning in. I believe we got up to about 20 something viewers at one point, so that was nice. Appreciate you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Will, I want to thank you very much for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I think this is the first time we've ever done a podcast, just me and you.
Yeah,
Every other
thank
time
you.
it's been a third party. So it was nice chatting with you, man. I want you to plug your stuff away. Where can the people find you?
Well, like I say, I've been around on YouTube. It seems like forever. So my channel's over there. You search my name, you'll find me over there. And just like I say, you can find me on Twitter, Will Martin MMA. DMs are open if you ever want to talk fights. Like I say, Kelton's back. I was really happy when I heard that he was bringing back his channel, because I remember Kelton reached out to me many moons ago. I think he used to watch me, and he says, I want to try and do this, and he did it. And then he had a little hiatus, and he went over there with Mr. Justin the policeman, who I like to kind of rip the shit out a little bit. So, but Justin's a good guy. I need to stop saying Justin. Justin is a good guy, and I wish him all the best with his bets for this week, because I know he's got some money on the line. But yeah, really happy to see Kelton's back. I think there's so much more room for a lot more predicts out there, and Kelton's got what you're around 600 subs or so. I think you can hit 1,000 this year. I think you can close in and get in those 4 figures. So hit that subscribe button, get that sub count up there, and let's see him hit those 4 figures and get more of an audience, because I think he deserves it. And like I say, he's going to have more people on here. I'm sure he'll be back on here soon enough. I'm really happy that I was in after Dan, who was Mr. Levy, who was on last week for the first event of the year. It's always great listening to Dan, who's the kind of godfather out there, in my opinion. He's one of the guys out there that I loves kind of speaking fights with, and one of the guys that'll kind of wind you up, and he'll bring the facts and he'll do all this. So yeah, go and support all the predictors out there, guys, even if they're shit. And don't get me wrong, there is some shit predictors out there. There is. Some people might think I'm shit, but I'm still here. But like I say, we're providing content for you guys. We love the fight game. And they put in hours watching tape, making bets. So just show that little bit of love by hitting the thumbs up and hitting the subscribe button. It literally takes milliseconds to do it. And it actually means a lot to people that kind of do this, just by seeing those little digits kind of rise up a little bit. So all the best for your channel. Like I said, I'm sure it'll be back on here soon enough. And enjoy UFC 257 when it hits this weekend, because it's a great card.
I appreciate all the kind words, Will. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're back. Not next week. I believe we got a 1 week break, but then I believe we are back the following week. We're gonna have Overeem versus Volkov. That's a very good main event. I guess I'll announce my guest for that one. I'm gonna have MMA Lock of the Night, my boy Manpreet, on for that breakdown. That's gonna be a very fun episode.
My Indian brother. Indian brother. I hope Manpreet, like you say, go and as well. And I know I'm right. Patreon. He's got Patreon. That guy doesn't want to work anymore. So go and hit that Patreon and give him that money. And it's the same with that. I'm going to set up a Patreon because I want that money. I want to retire early. But no, still, guys, just support all the guys out there. And Kelton, thanks for having me on. It's been a real fun one, this one. So thank you very much.
Of course, man. Likewise. All right. So that's it. Appreciate you guys. And, most importantly, just enjoy the fights this Saturday. It's going to be a very fun one. So appreciate you guys.
Nice.